But remind everybody what we're drinking.
We are drinking Four Roses single barrel bourbon.
So we got together and we put together a decent background on this. I think we should kind of flip back and forth on talking about it. So I'll let you start, and we'll just kind of go in a timeline of events.
Okay, I know you're gonna pour, but I'm gonna talk about the bottle. So
okay,
you can't pour.
Talk about the bottle.
So I guess before we talk specifically about Four Roses single barrel, we all know I'm obsessed with the bottle.
Yes.
I think this is probably why we first tried this. Like in our old fashioned, we were agreeing on a
we were just looking for a whiskey at that time. I think
probably
we didn't have many.
Four Roses etched on the bottle. Here, you hold it up there.
All right. Hopefully you can see.
And it's pretty. It's like not etched on the bottle. It's in the glass.
Imprinted, or I guess outprinted.
Outprinted? Out. It's not an innie, it's an outie.
Exactly. Yeah. See, you get it.
Yes. But let's get into some of the background and history of Four Roses. We have a full history for everybody. So Paul Jones Jr. moved his successful business, which nobody really says what it was for or what it was for sure, but presumably it was in the spirits industry. And he moved it to Kentucky on Whiskey Row in 1884, and he trademarked the name Four Roses 4 years later in 1892, while claiming he had been producing and selling the whiskey since the 1860s. But there's really no proof of that. It's just,
do you think, I mean, obviously 1880s, way different time. You would be like, hey, you should try this whiskey. I've been selling this shit since 1860s. People love it. You should try it. Do you think that's kind of how came about? Like, it's interesting.
There's just, but he claims 1860s. No documented proof.
No.
Jumping ahead, in 1922, the Paul Jones Company purchased the Frankfurt Distilling Company. And as part of this purchase came the rights to sell Four Roses as a medicinal whiskey during Prohibition, which is the main reason that Four Roses was one of the few bourbon brands to survive Prohibition. And interestingly enough, despite having the permit to sell their whiskey as a medicinal whiskey, Frankfurt Distilling Company wasn't distilling whiskey at the time.
Which is bizarre.
I know.
That's bizarre.
We're one of the only people who can.
Right.
We're not going to.
Yeah. And it reminds me, the old bottle you have says something about medicinal whiskey, which is just so cool.
I should have brought it in here.
Yeah. I can't remember how it's worded, but it's just so cool to see, like, in that time, they were like, no, this is good for your health. Try it. I'll take over for a little bit if you don't mind in our timeline here. In 1943, the company Seagram, which you probably know from Seagram's and, your Seagram 7 and all that, they purchased Frankfurt Distilling Company, which was Paul Jones' company at the time, for one specific reason: to acquire Four Roses. That was the main brand in that company that was performing. And they did a weird thing. Four Roses was one of the top selling bourbons in the U.S. in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, but they said, let's stop selling it in the United States. Instead, let's move it overseas to this rapidly growing European and Asian market that was wanting whiskey at that time. And it quickly became, and it still is, one of the top selling bourbons in Europe and Japan, which why not just do both? Maybe there was some supply and demand troubles back then. I don't know. Anyways, in 1966, Jim Rutledge joined Seagram in the Louisville plant's research and development department. And Rutledge would later go on to become the master distiller there. And he's still considered one of the most legendary master distillers in the opinion of most in the world of whiskey. In 1975, he transferred to corporate headquarters in New York up until 92. But he was asked to return home to Kentucky to help with the Four Roses brand, to kind of grow it back to what it was. And in 95, he replaced Ova Haney, who was the current master distiller. And for the next several years, he worked and worked and worked to get Four Roses back to the States. He's like, this is really good stuff. People love it. Why are we not selling it here?
Yes. So I'm going to fast forward a bit to 2002. What were you doing in 2002?
Let's see. I believe I was a sophomore in high school at that time. So hard to say what I was doing.
I
School
was
stuff
in
and getting my first
middle
jobs.
school. So just
That makes me sound
fresh
really
out of
creepy.
elementary.
That makes me sound really creepy. You need to stop that right now.
So 2002. I apologize if I butcher this, but the Kyron brewery company purchased the Four Roses bourbon brand and the production facilities, and they renamed the company to Four Roses Distillery LLC. So it wasn't long after that Four Roses bourbon was again being sold in the United States, and quite frankly earning a really good reputation in the bourbon world.
Yeah.
And then Jim Rutledge remained the master distiller up until August 2015. What were you doing in 2015?
2015. That was 3 years after we were married.
Yes. Yeah.
And 1 year of owning a house.
Was it?
I don't remember what I was doing at that time, though.
Quiz is over. You passed. You're fine. So yeah, he remained the master distiller up until August 2015.
Would have been funny if I was like, "Oh, I just graduated college," and you're like, "And I was just graduating high school." Anyways,
when he retired, in August of 2015. And then the new master distiller was Brent Elliott, who he had worked with Jim distilling Four Roses for about 10 years at that time. So he remains the master distiller up to today. Like he's still currently their master distiller.
His name is even on the bottle.
See, there you go. And then in 2020, Brent Elliott was named the master distiller of the year at the Whiskey Magazine's Icons of Whiskey America Award ceremony. That's a mouthful.
That's what she said. What's interesting to me with Four Roses, a lot of these bigger brands, they have a lot of different options for whiskey, and they keep coming out with new ones, right? I mean, if you think of like Jack Daniels, think of all the different Jack Daniels whiskeys there are. There's a ton of them. Four Roses is stuck to mainly their same core four. They have Four Roses bourbon. They have small batch. They have small batch select, which is like a cask proof. And then they have Four Roses single barrel. That's it. They do have some limited series now and then, but they mainly focus on those four. And I find that interesting because so many of those big brands are like, let's put out as many different things as we can. And Four Roses is like, you know what? We know what's good. Let's stick to what's good. For the single barrel, you can see what warehouses it is in. Ours is warehouse number SN, which is not a number. Four Roses. That's not a number. SN is not a number, but
are you sure it's an N?
I'm positive that says SN.
Okay, it says SN.
And the barrel number is a 36 double D. Oh no, 36-3D. So that's where ours came from. And this is proofed right at 100 proof. It's aged 7 to 9 years, depending on the bottle.
And it's good.
Did you try it already?
I haven't. Oh, you poured it. I didn't even see you pour it. Look at you.
I am very sneaky.
I will tell you though that the old fashioned that you made, which is from the recipe from their site, it tastes just like I imagine a Four Roses old fashioned should taste.
Yeah. It's good. It's a very good solid old fashioned.
Yeah, it's very good. Well balanced. Yeah. The only thing about my old fashioned that's freaking me out is the cherry stem. You put a cherry in my drink that has the longest stem I've ever seen, and it's like a stick poking me in the face every time I take a drink.
You should be used to that.
Oh my god. But otherwise it's extremely good in the old fashioned. I have not tried it alone.
Just real quick while you're start with the nose. We'll build a taste profile here. I think we should taste it, but checking in with the chat. Jamie saying back in my day during Prohibition, we had to buy bootleg alcohol that made us go blind. Pretty sure you're not that old, Jamie, but and then Cody checking back in. He had to pause for a minute. He is stoked for Vrabel. He wanted him last year. Pats will win 7th ring before Bills get one. Okay.
Oh my gosh. That's a statement.
We just need to have Adam and Cody on the podcast to just argue this back and forth. The Bills.
I'd like to see it.
Bills fan versus the Patriots fan. What do you get on the nose
Caramel,
with this?
oak.
Caramel?
It's like what you would expect to smell from a bourbon, but it's...
I feel like I get honey. Do you get a little bit of honey?
I can see where you pick up on honey. It's like a very, yes,
It's
a honey caramel. Honey and
Yeah.
caramel meshed together. It's very pleasant on the nose.
It is, yeah.
You can tell like it is a bourbon, but it's not like we've done a lot of whiskey tastings recently where we're quizzing each other. We should probably bring these to people.
I think so. I think
but like
it'd be fun, yeah.
I put like, what was it, like 10 to 12 bourbons like and ryes. Yeah. You pick them, you line them up in front of me, and you give me a taste, and I have to tell you which one it is. I have to tell you if it's a bourbon or a rye, and I have to tell you which one it is.
And walk through kind of the thought process of what you're tasting, what you're smelling. Yeah.
But it's, in my opinion, very easy to know if you're smelling a bourbon or a rye.
Yeah.
This is like a classic bourbon.
We did stump you on a couple, but usually it's easy.
Usually. I did better than you did.
We don't know that for sure. We did not officially keep track of
I do know that for sure.
No,
I do. But yeah, this is good. It's good. Yeah. Now let's try it.
All right. Well, we can't both try at the same time because somebody's got to be talking. I just keep getting that honey smell on it. Now that you're tasting, I guess talk about the mouthfeel first before you talk about the flavors, because I'm going to try it.
The mouthfeel? I guess it has a good mouthfeel. It's not.
It's a little thinner.
I was gonna say it's not really thick.
No, it's a little thinner. Not too thin, but it is a little thinner.
A little bit. It tastes like it smells.
It tastes. You get the kind of the sweetness out of it. I got a really oakiness in the finish. Yeah,
an oaky afterbirth.
An oaky afterbirth on the finish.
In the words of Michael Scott.
We're super professionals, you can tell, because we know the oaky afterbirth. Yeah, no, I get the oak after. Now I keep saying afterbirth.
It's afterwards. Like the finish is very oak forward finish.
Yes. And it I feel like it tastes like a aged bourbon. I mean, you can tell this is not a 2-year bourbon.
And that's why I like this one so much. And in an old fashioned,
there are good 2 years out there. I'm not trying to bash 2 years, but sometimes you taste a 2-year-old bourbon and you're like, you can tell that's young.
And most places don't make, like, if you go to a restaurant or you go out to a bar and they have 4 Roses, you're not getting the single barrel in your old fashioned. I really like the single barrel in an old fashioned. We have tried this. We've compared it to like just their normal 4 Roses.
Yeah.
And there's a significant difference. Yeah. It's better. And I think it is because of that aging.
Tastes older. Yeah.
It also could be because it's single barrel.
Yeah. And 100 proof. I think their normal is, can't remember if that's an 80 or 86er. I can't remember off the top of my head. We don't currently have a 86. Bottle. 86.
Could be wrong.
It's happened before.
I have Google. Why don't we just Google?
Do you? You have Google on that?
I have Google. We're sitting in front of Google and we're debating what we don't know.
I think, long story short, if you've not tried a lot of bourbons, you're new to the bourbon scene, but you want to get into more whiskey, you want to try some new ones. I think 4 Roses, especially the single barrel, is kind of one you should have in your lineup, don't you think?
Yeah. In your lineup. Yeah. 80 proof, it's 80.
Okay. I wondered. Yeah.
Yeah. Aged a minimum of 5 years though.
Okay. Jamie pointing out not an 86 or a 69er. Yeah, no, I think this is a solid one to make sure you have at your bar, especially if you're getting into whiskey, or if you just want, hey, I got some buddies that drink whiskey. I want something I can stock in there that they'll probably like, that they'll enjoy drinking.
Yeah.
I hate going to a place and, you go to a friend's place and it's not their fault, but they're like, I got some whiskey. You want any? And it's like, yeah, sure. What you got? I got this Jim Beam. It's like, I mean, Jim Beam's solid. I know what I'm getting, but okay. Or Jack, I got JD Apple. It's like, oh, okay. I got Crown Royal. Actually, I'm just going to stick with water. Thanks.